The day I landed my first steelhead from the Chehalis, I saw a crow zigzagging across the Michels field like no other crow has done before.
This is the table I keep. This is my warm spot in the world. A table to rest my ink bottle on. A table with other tables inside it. The ink wanting to be heard. Ink whose body is a river, whose fullness is to be joined with other waters. The ocean rolling landward comes home, one river at a time, cresting and breaking into song. Each day at my table, I hear the heart song and the lament as one by one the rivers come home. This is the table I keep.
I was going to be a writer, an American writer. I felt I should know America, so I went around here and there. And when I came back after 2.5 years of being gone, the first time I'd ever been away, more than 100 miles away from home all my life, I had a fresh perspective on it. That's what they've been calling it, Western Washington, the Puget Sound country, after some feeble-minded British sea captain who just happened to find the Straits of Juan de Fuca. In this country where we live now, we are between two great mountain ranges. We're between the Olympic Mountains out in the peninsula and the Cascades out on the east, inland. And all these rivers come down into this inland sea, all these Ish rivers. And it's the Ish River country after all the Indian river names. You start, say, at Seattle, and you have the Duwamish River, which runs into Elliott Bay. And then you come up at Everett now, and you have the Snohomish River. And you have, up above that, you have the Skykomish coming into the Snohomish. And you come on up, and you have the Stillaguamish, you have the Samish. The name is needed to see where you are. If you simply meet another person while you're traveling, oh, I live in the Ish River country. That's definite, that's real. When I kick the bucket, if anybody wants to say something, we could say he was a poet of the Ish River country.
Robert and I lived together on the river as neighbors. He had a shack next door to me, and he built it from a net shed. Well, all of a sudden we came to a realization that sometimes what you need is right in front of you.
So we wrote this little hit tune. I'm just waiting for another two-by-four to come floating down the river tonight. I tried to get a job so I could build a shed, and all that I did was to break my poor old back. So I'm waiting for another two-by-four to come a-floating down.
April has turned cold. The evening light fades through the clouds. A string of geese calls me out to sing a farewell. And I wish them luck as they go from Ish River, away out over the ocean. Long, long sweeps of rippling wings, bound for Siberia. Their wild song they take with them, and leave some behind. They leave enough so I don't have to leave home anymore.
We were all pretty much students at the university at that time, decided to go to Boulder to buy a vegetarian restaurant. Uncle Bob was really wanting to come with us. He came within a quarter of an inch of coming with us to Boulder. He was far too stuck in the mud to go to Boulder, Colorado.
An ideal way to be a poet is to be the poet of a community. Robert was the poet of this area. He knew everybody, you know, and when people saw this fellow walking down the street, they knew, oh, there's the poet, you know. I've heard people say, oh, there's the poet.
Robert did detach himself from the need for such a reputation outside of this region. I think that's what he was attached to. And had he, you know, gone on the national stage, which he could have done, he would have lost that. He's talking about poverty and obscurity as if it's a lot of fun, in a way, you know. I mean, all those shack poems are really, in the big picture, about obscurity, right? The obscure life of the monk, and the life of poverty, and how wonderful it is. And who thinks that? If poetry is your career choice, you have two ways to go. You can choose to pursue a national reputation and try for every contest and the agent and the big-time publisher, or you can accept that you're going to live your life in obscurity and poverty, and there's a joy to that. The joy is in the making of language.
A small frog has come to live with me. When I sing, he sings, and vice versa. And all in all, Frog seems to be quite satisfied with the way things are going. Frog has a different look on the world. Frog and me together here in the marsh, we are easily satisfied. Simple food pleases us. We go to bed when we want to. We get up when we want to, and we feel that nothing essential passes us by. We are doing well. So Frog and me will not vote tomorrow. We don't know any of those people, and they don't know us. Frog will belch up 3 flies on this as an oath, and as an oath I will have another drink. From now on I consult Frog in all matters of politics. I shall listen to friend Frog. Frog is my president, my Secretary of State, and my Supreme Court. Frog says, there is not now, nor has ever been, as far as I know, any connection between the government and flies. And Frog refuses to answer further questions. Frog wants to stay home and be left alone. No taxes on his flies. Seems to me Frog and wisdom joined hands long ago. Frog has been around and is no fool. Frog once sat on Thomas Jefferson's lap. Sometimes on a rainy night, when he has had enough, he repeats what he remembers. He governs best who governs least. He governs best who governs least. I'm going to listen more and more to friend and neighbor Frog.
Robert ran for mayor one year, and his platform, during his campaign was, we want the farmers to move their cornfields closer to the road so we don't have to get out of our cars to steal it.
I see this pen is full of ideas, and this chair embraces heaven and earth. The wide, wide spaces reach back, and the window celebrates, bringing a feast of light to the table. This is the biggest gift, the one I love most. Makes ink flow out of a pen, makes it say, everything that light touches, you will speak of. You will bring up thoughts and scenes and memories, and you will lift them into poetry, the clearest light of all. From the simple pen that was only a while ago lying on the table, streaks of beamy light shoot out now, as though each thing shone upon suddenly lighted up from inside itself. Tell the scoffers and those who linger in doubts whether light prevails. My pen is powerful. My poetry is clear and true. As long as there is light, my pen will move across the page, and the whisper of its tip moving on paper will turn into a great, lavish sound in someone's heart. Looking into the face of someone touched this way, you will be swept into the streams of light breaking from their eyes. You will come to rest on the lips of this lover, and there be crowned and carried into the hall of light. Break into dance, things of the world behind you. For this is the hall of light, and only the dancer and the pure of heart find their way here.
Robert had taken up occupancy in the little office space that we had there, which was heated. He sipped coffee and smoked cigarettes and wrote poetry for hours at a time. And, there were occasions when I was beginning to feel a little rushed and that we might not get all 25 of the buses completed before the morning shift came on, and I would, at some point in desperation, I would holler, "Robert, can you get out here and help me for a little while?" It was like I was pulling him out of a trance, But invariably, it took another hour or so, and then, just as the sunlight were coming up, and Robert would complete the poem, and it was, the expectation was that I would go with him then out into the street, where he would, by morning light, read his Ode to the Night Bus Mechanic.
Somebody mentioned that there was a wild poet who was living in a little cabin up at the far north end of the beach, in a little cabin that he'd made himself. And the whisper was, and he spent the winter here. And anybody who's gone in wintertime to see the storms coming in off the ocean on the Olympic coast, are just, that's a terrifying idea and mesmerizing. This was a magnetic draw for me, so I found myself wandering up the beach. And then pretty soon he appeared, and he had this beautiful long hair and dressed in his typical sort of loose-fitting blue shirt, had a beard, I think his hair was already silver then, and he just, the image of something like a Chinese hermit poet, which of course he was busy, creating for himself. The next day I wandered back up there, and he invited me into his little shack, and he made tea for me, and he read me some of his latest poems, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. And I realized this is the real deal. He's really a poet.
The poet went into the landscape and disappeared. A pack of hounds, barking, followed all the tracks and got nowhere. No one found more than himself and the others. After a time, someone said, "Sad life." And after a while, another, meaningless poet.
It's called Mean Dog on Country Road. Walking down from Harris's place on Grand Ridge, singing aloud to trees on both sides of me, I pass an ugly pink house set in a little hollow below the road. A police dog comes running through the junk-strewn yard and stops at the edge of the road, and I keep on whistling and pretending that I am not afraid. The bark is, and I will not look back. The bark is close behind me when a loud woman's voice roars from the house, "Trouble, get down here. Trouble, you get down here." Bolting out of the 18th century, Dr. Johnson flings open a second-story window and leans forward, saying, "Oh, excellently named creature." Oh, most excellently named. One by one, as I keep on walking, famous men step out from behind the trees to join me, each trying to outdo the other in brilliance. I can't recall all their conversations, but I believe you know them, having perhaps been troubled yourself on strange roads that lead back to the city.
And the spoken word was so important to Robert as a poet because he felt that his role as a poet was to share his poetry in gatherings and celebratory get-togethers. Publication was not that important to him. Yes, he published Bunchgrass. It was a very, very influential book, particularly poets of my generation who were just young, kind of wannabe poets at that time. The Bunchgrass poems were this example of a poet who was just very, very focused and paying attention in the midst of what we would consider all considered a very uninspiring landscape. By paying attention to the Beatles, to the movements of the clouds, to the song of a bird, to the way the wheat moved in the wind, and keeping little notes in a journal, he created this book of poems that not only was a celebration of that whole way of life and that place, but it was also a celebration of attentiveness.
Robert was unusual in being a kind of medium with all of the resonance that that word has with its spiritual associations, a medium for the essence and the breath of true poetry, so that when he read, there was no ego. This is a really rare thing, to find a poet who reads his or her work and in the reading transcends their self-consciousness, their self-concern, their self-admiration completely, to let the poem be only the poem and themselves only a medium for the poem to become oral in the air, is extremely rare.
Artistic creation out of almost nothingness.
Guiding a stray bee out of the house. Enough work for one day.
It's been a busy day. First one hummingbird, then another.
There's a beetle walking on the ground below me, looking for passage beyond my shoe. Sir, take a promise. I'll know you yet. We are going somewhere together, soon.
Cricket songs begin to rise straight up. Thin black stalks rising into the air, holding up invisible buds of song, which open out into the silence.
I can hear the two robins crying from an alder across the creek. Above me, in the vine maple, I see the net. I reach up and feel the 4 eggs lying lightly among soft feathers. I lift one egg out, lower my arm slowly, and stand still, appalled. I see the true shape of my hand.